Today I'll be showing you how to create this beautiful macrame style finish on this $4 cushion I found in Kmart. I also have a video on how to make these macrame plant stands. You can find the link to the video in the description box down below. To get started, you'll need a cushion, jute string, a ruler, a marker and a small pair of scissors. I also used a crochet hook, but you could use a latch hook or a safety pin. Taking your marker and ruler, you're going to mark in where to make the holes. For this cushion, I started by measuring in 1 centimeter. I then measured 4 centimeters from that mark and continued to measure out 4 centimeters until I reached the end of the cushion. I then marked 1 centimeter in from the edge again. So in total, you should have 10 marks. Take your scissors and puncture a hole where you created your first mark, then push the scissors through to make it wider. You'll need to be able to fit 2 pieces of jute string through the hole. Then go ahead and do the exact same thing for the rest of the marks that you've created. To get the length of my string, I measured out the width of the cushion times 11. Once you have done this, go ahead and cut 9 more pieces of string the same length. Feed the crochet hook from the opposite side of where you made your mark. Then, taking a piece of the string you just cut, folding it in half, loop it over the hook and pull it through the hole. Then, thread the 2 ends of the string through the loop, pulling it tight. Go ahead and do the exact same thing for the rest of the holes. Once you have finished, flip the cushion over and pull the strings to tighten the knots. We're now ready to start creating our knots. You're going to work in sections of 4 strings. Holding the 2 middle strings together, take the outer piece of string on the right and cross it over the middle strings. Then, taking the outer string on the left, feed it under all 3 strings and bring it up through the loop on the right. Then gently pull that knot tight. So now you're just going to repeat the exact same thing again, but starting on the opposite side. So starting with the left side and looping it over the 2 middle strings, and then feeding the right side under all 3 strings, bring it up through the left loop, and then pulling it tight. So you're just going to repeat the exact same knot another 3 times. Once you are finished, you should have 4 notches on the right side. Taking the 2 middle strings and folding them back, you're going to loop them through this space at the top here where my finger is. Gently pull the strings. This is how we form our knot. To secure the knot, we're going to do the same steps we did to start the knot. So just crossing that right string over the 2 middle strings, then threading the left string under all 3 strings and pulling it tight. And now we have secured our knot. Moving on to the next 4 strings, you're just going to repeat the exact same pattern we did on the first 4 strings. You're then going to keep repeating this pattern until you have knotted all the strings, and this will create our first row. Once you have finished all of your knots, your first row should be looking something like this. For the second row, move the first 2 strings aside, then you're going to take 2 strings from the first knot and 2 strings from the second knot and create the exact same knot you did on the last row. So again, just repeating the exact same pattern all the way across. Once you reach the end, you should have 2 strings left over. When you have finished the row, you should have 4 loose strings, 2 strings on both sides. Now we're going to create holes in line with our second row of knots. Take your scissors and puncture a hole in line with your knot. Feed your hook through the top of the hole and then pull the 2 loose strings through the hole, feeding the strings through the loop to create a knot. Spin your cushion around and do the exact same thing on the other side. Now you're just going to repeat the first 2 rows 4 more times. There should be 10 rows of knots in total when you finish. Once you finish, you should have 10 rows of knots in total, and now we're just going to secure our loose strings. Start by creating a hole in the corner of your cushion. The end 2 strings are going to be fed through this hole. Push your hook through from the opposite side and then pull the 2 strings through the hole. Create your next hole between the first hole and the next knot and feed the next 2 strings through. Now you're just going to continue creating a hole between each set of knots, feeding 2 strings from each side through the hole. So there should be 4 strings coming out of that hole. So you're going to go ahead and just keep repeating the same thing until you get to the end, and you should have 2 strings left over. When you get to your last 2 strings, you create your last hole right in the corner. Flip your cushion over, and to finish these off, you're just going to tie them into several knots and then snip the excess off. And just keep your excess strings because we're going to use those to make our tassels. To make the tassel, cut 40 pieces of string measuring 50 centimeters each and then divide them into 4 groups of 10. Fold all of your strings in half, then place your first group of strings down, feeding your second group of strings through the loop. Taking the folded end of your third group of strings, loop them through the second loop. Feed the folded end of the fourth group of strings through the third loop, then feed the first group of strings through. Gently tug at each side until your knot is tightly formed. Cut a piece of string, and then you're going to hold it up against the tassel and wrap the bottom half around the top of the tassel. When you get to the end of your string, use that loose end to tie it to the piece that was sticking up at the start. Once you have tied your knot, just tuck the loose strings in, or you can cut them off if you like. Next, just brush your tassel out, and I always like to cut a curve at the bottom of my tassels. I find that they just fall a lot more nicely. I forgot to mention this at the start of the video, but you'll also need a large needle. So just threading a bit of string onto the needle and tying a knot on the end of that piece of string. Then you're going to take your tassel, turn it upside down and split it in two, and just thread the needle through the bottom there and out through the top. Thread your needle through the corner of the cushion and pull the string until you get your desired tassel length. I left about a 3 cm drop. Then thread the needle back through the top of the tassel and tie another knot. To finish off, just snipping off any loose threads. If you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to check out my other jute cat videos and subscribe for more. To see more photos of my home, you can find me on Instagram at _Ashlee_white_. I hope you have a beautiful and creative week. Bye for now.